I met her on a Thursday, which already felt wrong. Thursdays are too beige, too hollow to house anything extraordinary. And yet there she was, standing beneath the flickering lamp outside the old bookstore I like to haunt. Her dress was far too thin for the cold, a sliver of crimson that drank the yellow light and clung to her like a second skin. She was tall, unnaturally so, with black hair that poured over her shoulders like liquid ink. Her lips curled the way fire does when it catches dry leaves. She smiled at me, and I forgot how to speak. I was never the sort of man women noticed. 35, bookish, with a face people forgot moments after meeting me. But she looked at me, like I was the only thing that had ever interested her. "Do you know the hour?" she asked, her voice a velvet rasp that trembled through my bones. I told her it was nearly 10. "How terribly late," she whispered. "Will you walk with me a while?" I loathe being alone after dark. Even as I nodded, part of me recoiled, alarmed by how quickly I surrendered to her presence, but my feet moved of their own accord. She told me her name was Lysandra. It sounded like something from a dusty Greek tragedy. She asked about my life, what I read, what I dreamt about. Her questions were strange and deeply personal, yet I found myself answering each one, like I'd been waiting my whole life to be asked. The night stretched unnaturally long. We wandered through alleys and streets I barely recognised, the city around us, seeming to bend and shift like smoke. I never once looked at my watch. Time in her company felt irrelevant. Somewhere between the 6th and 7th hour of our walk, she invited me to her home. It was not a house so much as a relic. Set back from the road, buried beneath weeping trees, the manor rose like a mausoleum from another century. Ivy choked the walls. The windows were black and opaque like old eyes. Inside, everything smelled of age. Rose petals long dead, candles melted to bone-white nubs, dust that had forgotten sunlight. And yet it was beautiful, in the way cathedrals are beautiful, immense, sacred, and full of silence that presses down like a shroud. "Would you like wine?" she asked, though I never saw her pour it. One moment the glass was empty, the next it brimmed with something dark as ink. I drank. Of course I drank. My throat burned, not unpleasantly, as though I'd swallowed a secret. She sat across from me, watching, always watching, as if measuring how much of myself I was willing to give. Her skin was pale, not sickly, but luminous, as if lit from within. Her eyes shimmered, not with light, but with memory. When she leaned closer, brushing a strand of hair from my brow, my heart thudded like a prisoner against the bars of its cage. "You're lonely," she said softly, almost sadly. "I can feel it in you. You wear it like perfume." I nodded, dizzy. My vision swam. Her scent was everywhere, violets and something darker, like wet earth after a funeral. She stood then, walking barefoot across the cold marble floor, and with each step I felt a pull inside me, a tension I couldn't name. "Let me show you something," she whispered. She led me down a narrow corridor that coiled like a spine, its walls lined with portraits whose eyes seemed to follow us. At the end of the hall was a room without windows, lit only by dozens of candles that cast trembling shadows across the floor. In the centre stood a large blackened mirror. At first I saw only myself in its surface, pale and unsure, my collar slightly askew. Then her reflection emerged beside mine, but hers did not move in time with her body. It twitched, staggered, delayed by seconds. Then it smiled when she did not. "Why doesn't it match you?" I asked, my voice a dry rasp. She leaned in close and whispered, "Because it remembers what I was." Her hands slid around my waist then, and her mouth brushed the side of my throat. My skin went cold, her breath was cool, not warm. That was when I understood. But by then, it was far too late. She pressed her lips to my neck, not biting. Not yet, just lingering, tasting. The tension in the room grew unbearable, like the moment before lightning strikes. I couldn't move. My legs refused me. She whispered things into my ear, ancient things, names and places I had never heard, but somehow recognized. And then the pain came, sharp and brilliant. Her teeth sank into my flesh like they belonged there. And with that bite, the world shifted. I felt myself unravel, memories unspooling like thread, thoughts growing sluggish, dim. My heartbeat faltered, then slowed, until the silence inside me was louder than anything I'd ever heard. She pulled away, her lips stained crimson, and watched me as I collapsed onto the floor. "You will sleep now," she said gently, almost maternally, "and when you wake, you will be mine." I wanted to scream, to protest, but the words died in my mouth. Darkness flooded my vision, thick and syrupy, and I fell backwards into it like sinking into tar. When I awoke, the world was colder, sharper. I could see in the dark now. Every shadow was defined. Every scent pierced my nostrils with unbearable clarity. I felt stronger, faster, but hollow, so terribly hollow. Lysandra stood above me, her skin bathed in moonlight, and she smiled as one might smile at a well-trained dog. "You are beautiful now," she said, "empty but beautiful." She placed her hand beneath my chin and lifted my gaze to hers. "Say it," she commanded. "Say what you are." "I am yours," I whispered, and I was. The days mean nothing to me now. We do not sleep like humans do, only rest when the sun scalds the sky. We dwell in catacombs, beneath cities, in ruined theatres, in forgotten monasteries, where the scent of incense still clings to the walls. She feeds and I follow. She sings in languages no longer spoken, and I echo her voice, trailing her like a shadow that has forgotten how to leave. I am not her equal. I am her creation, her pet, her sentinel. She tells me that eternity is not a curse if you surrender to it. Sometimes I remember the man I used to be, the books, the coffee, the slow walks to nowhere in particular. Then I look into the mirror she keeps in the chamber of blood, and I see the thing I've become. My reflection flickers now. It snarls when I smile. It shows me what I really am when the hunger takes hold. I still dream, but not of freedom. I dream of her hands, her teeth, her voice curling around me like smoke. She whispers to me every dusk and I listen, because there is no other choice. She saved me. That's what I tell myself now. From loneliness, from insignificance, from time, and for that I will serve her, forever. The rain started as we pulled into the gravel courtyard, fat droplets drumming against the windshield of our rental car. Sarah peered through the passenger window at the looming structure before us, her breath fogging the glass. "Are you sure this is the right place?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I checked the GPS again, though I'd memorised the route hours ago. Castle Dracul, just like the brochure said. Medieval fortress, 14th century, recently opened for overnight stays. I tried to sound enthusiastic, but something about the place made my skin crawl. The castle squatted against the darkening sky like a wound in the earth. Its black stone walls seemed to absorb what little light remained of the day, and the windows, those that weren't boarded up, stared down at us like hollow eyes. Twisted spires clawed at the storm clouds gathering overhead. "Maybe we should find a hotel in town instead," Sarah suggested, but I was already grabbing our bags from the trunk. We'd driven 6 hours through remote Romanian countryside to get here, and I wasn't about to turn back now. The heavy wooden door groaned open before we could knock. A gaunt man in an ill-fitting suit stood in the doorway, his pale face made paler by the flickering light of an oil lamp he held aloft. "Mr. and Mrs. Harrison," he said in accented English. "I am Dimitri. Welcome to Castle Dracul." Sarah's hand found mine as we followed him through corridors lined with moth-eaten tapestries and portraits whose eyes seemed to track our movement. Our room was in the east wing, up a spiral staircase that seemed to climb forever. The chamber was spacious but oppressive, dominated by a massive four-poster bed draped in burgundy velvet. Candles provided the only light. Dimitri explained that the electrical system was temporarily unavailable. "Dinner is served at 9, he said, backing toward the door. "Please do not wander the halls after midnight, for your own safety." The door closed with a sound like a coffin lid. Sarah immediately went to the window, struggling with the heavy curtains. "These are nailed shut," she said, tugging at the fabric. "David, I don't like this place. Something feels wrong." I wrapped my arms around her from behind, trying to ignore the chill that seemed to emanate from the very walls. "It's just atmospheric, that's all. Perfect for the Halloween season." But even as I said it, I felt it too. A presence, ancient and malevolent, pressing down on us like a physical weight. Dinner was served in a cavernous hall, lit by hundreds of candles. We were the only guests, our voices echoing strangely in the vast space. The food was elaborate but somehow tasteless, and the wine, a deep red vintage that stained our lips, left us both feeling dizzy and disoriented. Dimitri hovered nearby, never eating, his pale eyes watching our every move. When Sarah asked about the castle's history, his smile revealed teeth that seemed too sharp, too white. "Many legends surround this place," he said. "They speak of a nobleman who made a bargain with darkness itself. But surely you do not believe in such fairy tales." That night, I woke to find Sarah's side of the bed empty. The room was pitch black, except for a sliver of pale light seeping under the door. I called her name softly, but received no answer. I fumbled for my phone's flashlight and made my way to the door. The hallway beyond was empty, but I could hear something. A sound like singing, faint and hypnotic. Against every instinct screaming at me to stay put, I followed the sound. The melody led me deeper into the castle, down passages I didn't remember walking through earlier. The stones beneath my bare feet were ice cold, and the air grew thicker with each step. I found Sarah in what must have been the castle's great hall, standing before an enormous fireplace. She was perfectly still, staring into flames that cast no warmth. Her nightgown fluttered in a breeze I couldn't feel. "Sarah?" I whispered. She turned to face me, and my blood froze. Her eyes were completely black, reflecting the firelight like obsidian mirrors. Her skin was paper white, and when she smiled, I saw that her canine teeth had elongated into gleaming points. "David," she said, but her voice sounded wrong. Layered, as if multiple people were speaking through her lips. "Isn't it beautiful here? Isn't it perfect?" I stumbled backward, but found my way blocked by Dimitri, who had appeared behind me without making a sound. Up close, I could see that he cast no reflection in the polished armour decorating the walls. "Do not be afraid," he said, placing a hand on my shoulder. His grip was like ice. "The transformation is a gift, eternal life, eternal youth, eternal hunger. Your wife has already accepted it." Sarah glided toward me with impossible grace, her feet not quite touching the floor. "The castle calls to us, David. It's been calling for so long. We belong here now." I tried to run, but my legs felt heavy. The room spun around me, and I realised with growing horror that the wine had been spiked. Sarah's hands cupped my face, and her touch burned like frost. "Just let it happen," she whispered. And I saw my reflection in her black eyes, saw myself growing pale, saw my own teeth beginning to sharpen. The bite, when it came, was not painful. It was almost ecstatic, a rush of sensation that made every nerve in my body sing. I felt my life flowing out, but something else flowing in. Something ancient, hungry, and utterly inhuman. When I woke up, I was lying in our bed, and sunlight was streaming through cracks in the boarded windows. The light burned my skin like acid, and I recoiled with a hiss that didn't sound like my own voice. Sarah was beside me, looking radiant in a way that had nothing to do with health. Her skin was luminous pale, her lips red as fresh blood. She was beautiful and terrible. "How do you feel?" she asked, stroking my cheek with fingers that were now tipped with razor-sharp nails. I sat up, noticing how the motion felt different, stronger, more fluid. "Hungry," I said, and realised it was true. I was ravenously, desperately hungry, but not for food. Sarah's smile revealed her perfect predatory teeth. "Good. Dimitri says there will be new guests arriving tonight. A family with children." The thought should have horrified me. Instead, I felt my mouth water. Somewhere in the depths of my mind, my human consciousness screamed in revulsion. But it was a distant thing now, easily ignored. I rose from the bed and walked to the window, peering through the gaps in the boards at the world beyond. The sunlight no longer burned. It simply felt foreign, unwelcome. Night was where I belonged now. Night was when I would hunt. "We can never leave, can we?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Sarah joined me at the window, her reflection absent from the glass. "Why would we want to? We have forever now, David. Forever in this beautiful, dark place." Outside, I could hear a car pulling into the courtyard. New voices, tired from travel, eager for shelter. My enhanced hearing picked up the sound of a child's laughter, and hunger twisted in my belly like a living thing. I was no longer David Harrison, accountant from Minneapolis. I was something else entirely, something that belonged to the shadows and thirsted for blood. And deep in my transformed heart, in the place where my humanity once lived, I knew that we would never see home again. The hunting would begin at nightfall, and it will never stop, not as long as we are alive. The subway platform was nearly empty at 2:47 a.m, just me and the fluorescent lights humming their electric lullaby overhead. I should have taken a cab, but after 18 hours of overtime, debugging code for a client who couldn't make up their mind about basic features, my wallet was as exhausted as I was. My name is Marcus, and I'm a software developer who's made a career out of keeping terrible hours. Most nights, I'm the last person to leave the office building, stumbling through empty streets toward the metro station, like some kind of urban zombie. But tonight felt different. Tonight, the city seemed to be holding its breath. The digital sign flickered. Next train, 4 minutes. I slumped against a pillar and closed my eyes, listening to the distant rumble of trains on other lines. That's when I heard her. "Rough night?" Her voice was like silk sliding over broken glass. Beautiful, but somehow wrong. I opened my eyes to find a woman standing just a few feet away. She hadn't been there moments before. I was certain of it. She was stunning in that otherworldly way that makes you forget how to breathe properly. Pale skin that seemed to glow under the harsh station lights. Dark hair that moved despite the absence of any breeze, and eyes so deep blue they looked almost black. "Yeah, something like that," I managed, suddenly self-conscious about my wrinkled shirt and the coffee stains on my sleeve. She glided closer, and I do mean glided, because I never saw her feet touch the ground. I know the feeling. Work can be consuming. When she smiled, I caught a glimpse of something that made my stomach clench with unease. Her canine teeth seemed sharper than they should be, more pronounced. The train's headlight appeared in the tunnel, growing brighter as it approached. The woman stepped closer to me, too close. I could smell her perfume, something floral and cloying that reminded me of funeral homes. "I'm Lilith," she said, extending a pale hand. Her fingers were ice cold when I shook them, and she held on longer than necessary. "And you look like someone who needs to get somewhere safe." The train screeched to a halt, its doors sliding open with a pneumatic hiss. The car was completely empty, except for a homeless man, sleeping in the corner, a newspaper draped over his face. Lilith gestured for me to enter first, and despite every instinct screaming at me to wait for the next train, I stepped inside. She settled into the seat across from me, crossing her legs with fluid grace. Her eyes never left my face, and I found myself unable to look away. "Tell me about yourself, Marcus," she said, and I startled. I hadn't told her my name. "How did you—" "Your badge," she said, nodding toward the ID card clipped to my shirt pocket. But I always turn my badge around when leaving work, a habit born from paranoia about identity theft. I glanced down and saw that it was indeed facing outward, displaying my name and photo clearly. The train lurched into motion, plunging us into the tunnel's darkness. The overhead lights flickered intermittently, casting strange shadows that seemed to move independently of their sources. Lilith's skin appeared even paler in the strobing light, almost translucent. "I work in tech," I said, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. "Software development? Nothing exciting." "Oh, but I think you're very exciting, Marcus." Her voice had taken on a different quality, deeper somehow, with harmonics that made my spine tingle. "You have such a strong life force. I can practically taste it from here." I tried to stand to move to a different car, but my legs wouldn't obey me. "Feeling tired?" Lilith asked, and her smile revealed those sharp teeth again. Definitely not normal. They were pure white and razor sharp, like a shark's. The city takes so much out of us, doesn't it? All that rushing around, all that stress. But I can make it all go away. The homeless man in the corner hadn't moved since we boarded. As my vision cleared slightly, I realised why. His skin was grey, his lips were blue, and the newspaper covering his face was stained with something dark. "What did you do to him?" I whispered. Lilith glanced over at the corpse with casual indifference. Poor thing was already half dead when I found him. I simply finished the job. His blood was thin, unsatisfying, but yours. She inhaled deeply, as if savouring a fine wine. "Yours smells rich." My rational mind couldn't accept it. Vampires were fiction, stories to frighten children. They didn't exist in the real world of subway commutes and software deadlines. But Lilith was rising from her seat with predatory grace, moving toward me with movements too fluid to be human. Her eyes had gone completely black, reflecting the flickering lights like obsidian mirrors. Her fingers had elongated into claws that scraped against the metal handrails. "Please," I begged. "I have a family, a sister in Portland. She depends on me." "Family," Lilith mused. "How quaint. They'll mourn you for a while, of course, but eventually they'll move on. They always do." Her hand touched my cheek, and it was like being caressed by winter itself. "The beauty of hunting in the subway, Marcus, is that people disappear down here all the time." I tried to scream, but only a whimper escaped my lips. Her other hand gripped my shoulder, holding me in place with inhuman strength. I could see my reflection in her black eyes, pale and terrified and utterly helpless. "The transformation isn't instant," she whispered, her breath cold against my ear. "First, I'll drain you nearly dry. Your heart will slow, your vision will fade, your body temperature will drop. But you won't die immediately. There will be a moment when you hover between life and death. That's when you'll see the truth about what exists in the shadows of your world." Her lips brushed against my neck, and I felt the sharp points of her fangs pressing against my skin. "Some people fight it," Lilith continued, as if we were discussing the weather. "They struggle and plead and make such a fuss. Others, like that man over there, simply accept their fate. Which will you be?" The bite was not the sharp pain I expected. Instead, it was almost pleasurable, a warm, spreading sensation that made my limbs feel heavy and relaxed. I could feel my blood flowing out of me, and with it, my strength, my will to resist. As my vision began to dim, I saw Lilith's true face reflected in the train window, ancient and beautiful in its monstrosity. "Sleep now," she murmured against my throat. "When you wake, you'll be something new, something hungry." The last thing I remember before consciousness faded was the sound of the train pulling into a station I didn't recognise. Through the windows, I glimpsed a platform platform that seemed to stretch into infinite darkness, populated by figures that moved with Lilith's same unnatural grace. The doors opened with their familiar hiss, and I felt myself being lifted, carried into a world that existed beneath the world I'd always known. A realm where creatures like Lilith hunted people like me, where the missing and the forgotten became something else entirely. I never made it home that night. In fact, I'm not sure I'll ever see daylight again. So if you find this diary, please hand it over to my sister and tell her to forget her brother, Marcus. He is long gone,